for the first portion, Jonathan Wetstein. We'll also be hearing from our farm manager, Jeff Tober, and our environmental policy guru, Heidi. It is a real privilege and honor to be here to talk about sustainable agriculture. I'm my title here since 2024 is a little bit long, Sustainable Agriculture and Food Systems Advocate. It's a long title, but it really talks about the importance of what sustainable agriculture is in the Pinelands region and what it means to the Pinelands Preservation Alliance. Quick backstory, I had a career change about 15 years ago when I got into community development in Camden. And I spent those 15 years supporting the creation of a more fair and just food system for underserved neighborhoods in that city. And through that process, I was able to establish a cross-sectoral collaboration called Roots to Prevention, now housed here at PPA. And the idea was really to further this objective of making healthy, fresh food available, affordable, and accessible to everyone, and addressing some of the circumstances that were making it a barrier for so many. And so before I go further into the presentation, I do want to give everyone just a quick historic overview of our food system. If human history was a clock, many of you may not know this, we've lived exclusively as hunters and gatherers for about 22 of those 24 hours. That's a long time. That means we've only been farming for about 2 hours. This is very short. Hopefully many of you don't really know what had happened about 2 hours ago, if you will. And that's because of the agricultural revolution. This arguably started about 20,000 years ago and has accelerated humanity, its civilization, and all of our technological breakthroughs in a very, very short amount of time. Because of farming, we were able to develop cities, schools, the arts, scientific breakthroughs, division of labor, so many things. But also, it changed how we looked at food. Remember, as hunters and gatherers, we were eating over 250 varieties of plants and animals. Now, with the population boom through agriculture, we were getting most of our calories from just 15 varieties. This kind of demand really asked us to think about ways we could produce more food to meet the growing demands of our population and less about the variety. And so this means in the last 2 minutes, that's right, last 2 minutes of this clock, we've been part of this globalized industrial food system. And what's so interesting about this is that in those 2 minutes, we can now order a cheeseburger with our smartphone. We can get a whole variety of food in season, out season, whenever we feel like, at a reasonably cheap price. The availability is unparalleled to any other period of human history. But there are downsides to the industrialized process that has kind of taken over the food system in the last 1 or 2 centuries. And these are just a few of those bullet points that we're trying to basically come up with strategies to address. The real short side of the story here is that this globalized industrial agricultural system is using up more of our resources than our planet can produce, particularly with our soil and our fresh water. So there is an alternative system that can address those issues on our planet that is also looking to address exploitation and fair wages for people and still be economically viable. And so taking those 3 principles of sustainable agriculture, Pinelands Preservation Alliance is really looking at ways we can deploy our resources to address the fallout of our industrialized food system as it relates to health, hunger, consolidation, corporate takeover of our food system, the environmental impacts I just mentioned to you, as well as policy. And as many of you know, since 1989, policy and advocacy has been the cornerstone of our nonprofit here. And about 5+ years ago, 5-ish, we ventured into the sustainable agricultural space by restoring a formerly industrial soy farm into a 72-acre chemical-free farm, where we are providing training and employment opportunities in a CSA of pesticide-free produce that also doubles as a habitat for our local bird and plant and animal species. So we're bringing life back into the farm the way it was intended to be. And even more recent than that, we have been trying to create new opportunities for our small mid-sized farmers here in southern New Jersey, many of whom are the main actors when it comes to growing food for people and not cattle feed and commodity crops. So really, really important asset to our state. And we're even working to address and close some of the health disparities and hunger gaps in our adjoining urban and rural communities. It's been said best here at the Alliance that if our neighbors aren't healthy, the Pine Barrens aren't healthy. So this is a very integrated response that PPA has been taking on. And I'll start with health because that's at the top of our pyramid here. And so, as I had mentioned, for about 15 years, I've been working in Camden. And one of the biggest challenges Camden, Atlantic City, many of our urban communities face is that underserved communities simply lack fresh food. And where they can get it, the quality is not great, it's expensive. The retailers, typically corner stores, can't financially shoulder the reality of the short shelf life. And so this is a very big challenge in an urban foodscape, is bringing that fresh produce in and making it affordable. So what's left, obviously, is access to affordable, but nutrient dense, ultra processed foods. And these are foods that come from typically one plant material, generally corn, reconfigured to look and resemble like a variety of food. But it definitely has been a contributing factor to health disparities when fresh food is not available. So what we've seen in the last 50 plus years is a significant rise in chronic illness and hunger simultaneously across the country. Basically, our globalized industrial food system is not equitable. It's not providing access to all of the varieties of food to every American at the same time. So what we have here in New Jersey is about 1.3 million New Jerseyans living in what the USDA has designated as a food desert. They do not have the income and the transportation to get to a full service grocery store, which means their food options are limited. And in 22, the EDA actually took it a step further and had a more comprehensive strategy and plan released. And in this plan was a report that highlighted Camden, Atlantic City as some of the most impacted, most vulnerable for food desert designations. So the work that I've been doing in Camden was trying to also reconcile the reality that this has been going on for several generations. So these dietary habits have been going down to mom, her child, her grandkids, and so there's a cycle that's happened that also needs to get broken. And when we talk about food deserts and this cycle, the reality is that within a food desert, you may have a food insecure household, and both of them have the same implications in terms of nutrition. Obviously, the cupboard to your left is full, but that food is not necessarily addressing some of the nutritional deficits that we're seeing in the healthcare sector. And one of our partners in Camden, Virtual Health, has been really helpful in supporting our collaboration, Roots to the Prevention, for the last 8 years. And they really started out understanding this rise in healthcare costs and food insecurity correlation from the get-go. Understanding about 10% of New Jersey households are hungry. They're going hungry. And all of those little red dots you see, these are patients with a chronic disease linked to diet that also were food insecure. So you can kind of see the correlation. They assembled a health index by census tract that showed those chronic diseases like hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and a lack of transportation to a full service grocery store. And the redder the color, the more the disparity and the more prevalence of the disease is being prevalent in those tracks. So you can see right here, poor health follows food insecurity pretty closely. And if we take a step back to a national scale, 99% of the nation's $4.9 trillion in annual healthcare expenditures can be linked to chronic illness. And the driver of most of this chronic illness is overwhelmingly food insecurity and lack of full nutrition. The good news, that large expense is reversible in many instances, and we have a lot of healthcare providers that have the data to show that. Where we see our role in all of this is the prevention. There are a variety of different interventions that are being deployed that can help identify the most vulnerable populations and prevent them from developing those illnesses. Because the reality is 1 out of every 3 New Jersey residents is experiencing one of these 3 chronic illnesses. And in most cases, if you have one, you have at least another, which the term is coined comorbidity. So PPA, we have our farm, and we took on Roots of Prevention, which initially was a partner where we were helping urban agriculture create new economic opportunities by selling produce to the healthcare providers that understand the need for better access to fresh foods. And last year, Rancocas Creek Farm grew by having Roots of Prevention alongside. And in just 1 year, we have been able to raise over $1.1 million together to invest back into improving urban food systems in our region, not just in Camden. So really, really excited to share with you some of this work. So Roots of Prevention, or cross-sectoral collaboration, as I mentioned, really focus on reducing the number of Camden families experiencing or at risk of developing chronic diseases linked to diet. We are a growing network of partners, each leveraging its own existing skills, programs, and resources to align to this goal and mission. And one of the key drivers for change has been leveraging existing wellness programs offered by our healthcare sector. They get it, they understand food is medicine. And so we're working to create a brand new opportunity for our patients and residents to participate in a healthy food economy where they're part of the solution. So when a healthy food economy in Camden is created, for us, this means households are able to earn income by growing fruits and vegetables prescribed by healthcare providers. And that's right. For those that don't know, hospitals in growing numbers are able to prescribe fruits and vegetables to treat chronic disease. And this has been a game changer because now we can recognize more money is coming into these communities. We just need to figure out how that money can be captured and spent directly on a local food economy. And so we're now transforming neighbors into local growers and healers in communities that are most vulnerable to these diet-related illnesses. And that's really exciting. We have Rancocas Creek Farm right here at Southampton to not only be a resource and to supplement inventory for these institutional buyers, but also to be the aggregator. So they can help our growers any size by buying their produce at wholesale, taking care of the packaging, the cleaning, and the delivery to the healthcare system. So they get paid up front, and then we at Pinelands Preservation Alliance can work on dealing directly with those healthcare institutions in the procurement side. So it's a win-win for everybody because healthcare gets locally sourced produce, the grower gets their produce sold without having to come up with back office support, get a refrigerated van, deal with storage, repackaging. We can take care of all of that together. So these are our 2 main health systems that are supporting our work right now, Virtua and Cooper. And they're distributing the produce grown not only in Camden, but in our neighboring farms as well as Rancocas Creek, so that it gets back to the most vulnerable community in ways that they can afford to get that food. The bottom right is our refrigerated van. To your left is some of Virtua's innovative programs called Eat Well. And one of them is a mobile farm truck that sells produce at below market price, which has been stocked with produce grown all over our region, including Camden. They also have a prescription food pantry where patients with these illnesses can learn how to treat them through diet and can bring home produce on site. They even took a New Jersey transit bus about 5 years ago and converted it into a mobile grocery store that's a little bit closer to market price, but they accept SNAP, WIC, and a lot of other vouchers to make that food affordable for all. Meanwhile, at Cooper, we have a CSA for employees and patients, in addition to a farmer's market, and we accept SNAP, WIC. We're very inclusive, so we're really lucky to have these two partners that can continue to drive up the value of produce for our growers without disrupting donations. And so combined, we've been able to distribute over 60,000 pounds of produce annually. And we have data that shows that this intervention from emergency prevention has been increasing fruit and vegetable consumption through our healthcare partners at Roots to Prevention / prescription food box expansion. We're seeing a decrease in some of those chronic diseases. We understand food insecurity is concentrated in urban centers. That's where we have our largest populations. It's really important to recognize that poor health outcomes follow food insecurity. You're not thinking about kale if you're just trying to get enough calories to get by. And so we're creating those economic pathways, and we're bringing more local food to the community through these wellness programs. The last section I will talk about is this idea of farm consolidation, corporate consolidation in the industrialized food system, the other significant trend in these last 2 minutes of humanity's history. And so if we zoom in here, the reality is with the industrialized system, you have larger farms growing every year. And when they get to a scale that competes at a global scale, you have a higher susceptibility to supply shocks. Now, what does this mean? Well, we know that there's hurricanes and pandemics and all sorts of natural disasters and things that can disrupt our supply chain. Wars, another good example. We're running at these very razor thin, efficient scales. The economic opportunity for those producing in that supply chain become more and more limited. The producers are growing 1 or 2 crops, so they don't have a variety to fall back on, not even a variety to feed themselves. And if they can't sell that produce due to a disruption, those shocks kind of permeate out and increase the amount of hunger we have in our world, really, our global partners and communities. So it's becoming more and more difficult for small producers to compete on price and make a profit, even if you took the equation out of disruption, because now we have a food system that is looking at aggregation, distribution, and sales at a scale that only the large producers can utilize. So if you're a small, mid-sized producer, no, you're not making millions of pounds of corn, wheat or soy. You're producing vegetables and things can really help prevent disease. You may have to drive 3 or 4 hours just to get that canned or processed, and you may not have a warehouse that's willing to pick up your product and deliver it to a grocery store because you're not making the volume that the grocery chains now have aligned to. So the size of this entire system is kind of squeezing out our smaller growers, and we know that small mid-size are the most important producers of fresh food for the United States. As I mentioned, COVID-19 was one of those shocks, and we have a lot of data on how that had really shined a light on the disparities in our food system, particularly with our most vulnerable populations. Our healthcare partners at Roots to Prevention were able to collect a lot of data to kind of highlight how the system is so fragile when it comes to providing nutritious foods. And even as far back as 2011, the World Bank had been warning that this global system was one shock away from a full-scale food price crisis. The entire supply chain is spread thin across the globe, and there's a lot of opportunities for things to go awry. And this has led to political uprises and changes in countries in ways that had never been calculated before, all because of food, which is really profound. And then as it relates to the farms expanding in size, this also includes metrics like consolidation of cropland. You can see here in a short amount of time, we're continuing to see decreases in the number of farms in our state as it becomes more and more costly and difficult to operate, especially in an industrial scale where the value of your crops are low. It's just a real challenge to generate wealth without going back to producing varieties of crops and having a variety of buyers. You can even see here the acreage increasing. And so monoculture is the root of why the value crops are going down and reducing the income opportunities for our producers. And this is all to align to our global supply chain and not to the producer or their families. And so we have kind of inherited decreased wages, more labor exploitation because of it. And it just adds another layer of challenges to our small farms. And the one other supporting document I wanted to share with you is this 2021 study from Rutgers Food Innovation Center, where we clearly need aggregation, distribution, value-added processing facilities for our small farms. So PPA, we hear you, we understand, and through a USDA grant worth almost $1 million, we are in the midst of formalizing the South Jersey Feast, the Farmers Equity and Sustainability Task Force. We're doing this in concert with New Jersey Food Democracy Collaborative to help those small farmers thrive. We're looking at ways that we can formalize that structure so that we can provide technical assistance, marketing, capacity building, and a formal membership. And we have a transparent approach to do that. It's called AgriCluster Resilience and Expansion. It's a professionally facilitated strategic planning process where we're putting the farmer in the center of what would you like Feast to be? Is this going to be a cooperative? Is this going to be a broker? Is this a nonprofit? What are your highest priorities and needs, and how can Feast meet those needs? So I'm real excited about where this is heading. We're going to be meeting in January, and we're going to come out with a formal entity called South Jersey Feast, and there'll be a membership, most likely, that I invite everyone to follow up on. And then in tandem with South Jersey Feast, here at PPA, we've been working with other institutional buyers to see what other procurement opportunities might be there for our Feast farm partners. It's a mouthful to say. And we already see at least $360,000 of income opportunities for our regional partners. If we can leverage Feast to streamline the aggregation of that produce from all of those farms and get that to the Food Bank of South Jersey, to get that to the Camden City School District. There's a lot of money to be had. And again, what's great about procurements with institutions is that they're paying wholesale to retail and somewhere in between for produce in communities where residents are also in need of that food to be donated and given out. So to sell to the partners that are donating and giving out that food is a win-win for the producers, because a Camden resident can grow and sustain themselves producing food that their neighbors can get free of charge. So the other part of that equation is our markets. We got a farmers market promotion grant as well to look at not only Camden, but to support the Opportunity League of Burlington City and crops over in Atlantic City. And we're lucky that the villages that is supported by the Opportunity League is also part of Pinelands Preservation Alliance's portfolio of food access and food production support. They're in the process of developing a local market for urban farmers and food entrepreneurs, which is just incredible. They have a farm stand in Camden. We now have storage and distribution on Haddon Avenue to aggregate our produce, to bring it to a new farm stand that has been constructed in the Parkside neighborhood, in addition to all the sales going on at Virtua and Cooper. And then down Atlantic City, then there's Cooper. We have our partners at Crops, and they have launched additional markets accepting SNAP and WIC, where you had families that had all of this great support, but no market to spend that currency down. Now they have transportation bringing seniors to those markets so they can spend their SNAP, their WIC dollars, and bring home fresh produce without having to leave the city. They have a hydroponic production facility. They have a store on Michigan Avenue. If you haven't been, it's really impressive. And so collectively, we are trying to figure out what items and what price points makes the most sense for these markets and ways we can streamline and improve them so others can kind of follow up and replicate the work that we're doing. So in response to the consolidation, we've been able to leverage over $1.1 million of federal funding and create new income streams for over 20 farms, helping more than 100 individual farm workers. we've expanded access to those markets using SNAP and WIC dollars across 3 of these cities. And, farms around the world, are struggling and shrinking. So we're really trying to make sure that initiatives like South Jersey Feast and this farmers market promotional grant can slow down that trend and reverse it. Because, as I said, we're running out of soil and fresh water. We know the system's vulnerable to shocks. It's not fighting hunger. It's putting low value on labor, and it's excluding our small farmers. So we're really excited to be not only in the center of the issue, but having a comprehensive approach to addressing those issues. And so, with that in mind, I am going to pass this along to Heidi and Jeff to talk a bit about sustainability in farming.
Okay, and then if we have any questions while we're switching over, let us know in the chat. There's nothing. I'm gonna give control to Jeff. So Jeff, you can use your keyboard to progress through the slides.
All right. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, talk about, I just got back from, we had our pigs processed, and there's a lack of butchers in the area. So I just got back from almost central Pennsylvania picking up our pigs. So sorry I was late. Thought I could be here for this. Thanks, Heidi and Jonathan. So I'm Jeff Tober, manage Rancocas Creek Farm since 2020. Before that, I was managing Fernbrook Farm. I helped start that in Chesterfield in 2007. Before that, I was a farm apprentice and then assistant manager at a farm called Brookfield Farm in Amherst, Massachusetts. I grew up in the suburbs outside of Philly, did not grow up on a farm, kind of found my way into it a little bit later in life. And here I am giving a presentation and on the cover of a publication there. All right, let's see. Also not super tech savvy.
Use
Where's
the
next?
keyboard. So
I know what a
right.
keyboard is.
That's what you have to use.
But which buttons?
To the right.
Let's see. Sorry, I'm just not seeing the Oh, was that you, Heidi, or me?
No, that was you.
Oh, not sure what I did, but there's our farm. It's a 72-acre preserved farm under the state and county farmland preservation program. And it sort of surrounds PPA's footprint. And PPA acquired the farmland through a gift in 2019, and their staff and board decided to take ownership in the hopes of transforming the farm and making it an asset for the nonprofit. And they hired me at the end of 2019 to come in and help to start that process. And you can see in that picture, one of the things we dealt with or deal with are some stormwater management and erosion and flooding issues. There you go. So for many decades, it was rented out by some local growers who pretty much grew conventionally grown soybeans year after year. Yeah, I sort of covered that. The state has 250,000 acres preserved, farmland acres preserved through the Farmland Preservation Program. They just sort of changed the formula last year to up the ante and try to preserve. The goal is another 250,000 acres, where the owner gets paid a certain dollar amount per acre to preserve the farm, and then he or she still owns the farm. They just don't own the development rights, so they can sell the farm. They obviously have to farm the property. And then they're eligible for other funding as a preserve farm. So it's a pretty good deal. When we started the farm in 2020, we had many goals. One was making the farm sustainable in terms of soil health, in terms of the economic viability of the farm. One was to manage the stormwater issues on the farm, involve people in a variety of ways, both volunteers, customers, farmers in training, all kinds of different groups and partners, grow food that's healthy for people instead of a commodity crop. And sort of the overarching theme of the project, in my eyes, is to find a way to conserve or to blend agricultural areas with conservation areas. So sort of getting away from that model where you're sort of clearing your farm of everything nature and increasing yields at any cost, growing hedgerow to hedgerow. Ours is more, how can we incorporate natural systems to, in fact, augment our food production and our agricultural lands? How can we have those systems in harmony on the same property? That's our goal. So we've planted about 7 acres of natural areas, meadows, grasslands, pollinator habitats, and some reforested areas to help manage our stormwater. So healthy soil farming takes a lot out of the soil. You got to work really hard just to sort of break even. So we employ a lot of strategies to try to build soil health. We make and spread our own compost. We use a lot of mulches, leaves, and straw. There we're using some cardboard in some of the walkways and the garlic. Behind that farmer, you can see a tarp, which helps us reduce tillage. We also use cover crops very aggressively, and we take parcels out of production in a given year to let them be in a nice leguminous cover crop, let the soil aggregates build up, the earthworm populations rebound. So we're fallowing a certain amount of cropland every year. There's the tarping I talked about, trying to reduce tillage. We've planted, over 1,500 trees on the farm since 2020. Fruit trees, street trees, trees in the wetter areas to help manage stormwater, putting permanent roots in the ground, also sequestering carbon and providing habitat for birds and pollinators. Just like I said, there's some cover crop, some sorghum Sudan grass with sun hemp on the right, and so a nice mulched walkway, adding organic matter in between tomatoes on the left. So this is from 2020. The farm, when you get a lot of storm water, which through climate change, you can expect, more extreme water events, rain events. You can see that there's areas on the farm where the rainwater would pool and then sort of run off the farm through that little rivulet area and then run into Vincenttown and cause flooding in Vincenttown and the adjoining Rancocas Creek, which is right there, hence the name of our farm. So this was kind of before we started working here. We got a grant from the Watershed Institute to plant natives in that. It's a very targeted area. We're not reforesting the whole farm here. It's just really where the water snakes through the farm. So we're trying to put in permanent roots to absorb stormwater, increase infiltration, slow the flow, that kind of thing. So, other benefits of having those natural areas are habitat for birds, pollinators, allowing the fungal communities in the soil to rebound. We use lots of mulch, wood chips, and leaves in that area. It's really done a great job managing stormwater. I will say that. Chemical-free produce. We are not a USDA certified organic farm, but we do call ourselves chemical-free. That's a different discussion whether to certify or not. But we grow a lot of food. We grow, over 60 different crops, over 250 or 300 varieties of crops, plants every year. runs the gamut of what you can grow in New Jersey. Yeah, 32.5 pound watermelon without chemicals. There you go. We do, especially now when there's such a need, we try to donate as much produce as we can to a variety of institutions that need it. We go to Farmers Against Hunger quite a bit. They pick up often. They're part of the New Jersey Ag Society. They take food right to agencies and families who need it. We have about 350 families this year in our CSA, which is Community Supported Agriculture. So most of our produce we sell through the subscription program. People buy a share to the farm in the winter and spring, and then starting first week of June, they come to the farm once a week and they get a distribution of the produce that we grow here. Most families come to the farm. We do some box shares as well to Burlington City and Camden. So, like I said, trying to blend natural areas with agricultural areas rather than trying to, keep nature out. We want to work with natural systems. And, birds help eat insects. And yeah, actually, we had and one of our colleagues had an intern here doing some data and figuring out what species were living in our natural areas. I don't know the full extent of that research, but I'm going to. Involving people, we have an apprentice program. So right this year we have 4 full-time apprentices. And, as I said, that's how I learned how to farm. I took an apprenticeship. And basically you trade your energy and your labor for knowledge. So we try to recruit really good, hardworking people and give them a lot of responsibility. Apprentices get to do just about everything on the farm, operate tractors, do all the field work, distribution, greenhouse, work with the livestock, go to other farms, field trips to other farms and for tours and workshops. And we do some crop and business planning at the end of the year as well. So trying to help train the next generation of growers. You say, what is a farm? Obviously, a farm is a place that, I guess, by its most basic definition, grows food. But it can be so many more things in addition to growing food. It can be a place where people come to seek recreation and solace and peace, a place that we're supporting biodiversity, helping to manage and clean stormwater, a teaching place. We're trying to sort of constantly push the envelope as to what a farm is and what a farm can be. So, like I said, we have about 350 families signed up for our CSA program. We have a work share program where people trade, instead of buying a share, they trade 100 hours of work on the farm. We have volunteers who come. Thoughts on sustainability. Sustainability is good. And there's Heidi, my colleague. And I'll kind of end it there and see
Yeah.
if we have any questions.
Thanks so much for coming in from the farm to give a little presentation, Jeff.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we'll do questions for all the speakers at the end, but my part's just going to be like 5 minutes here. So, hi, I'm Heidi Ye, the policy director at PPA since 2022. So Jonathan and Jeff talked about some really awesome things that we've been doing as an organization, but there's a lot of things that are outside of our control, all these external pressures on farmers that we're also trying to advocate to help change. So for development pressure is very high in New Jersey. It is the most densely populated state in the United States. And it's estimated that we're going to reach build out where you have no new land available. Everything is either built on or preserved. That's going to happen sometime between 2040 and 2070 for New Jersey. But because of this high pressure, farmland is seen as an easy target for developers. You've got these wide open spaces. They don't even have to tear down trees in many cases. So There's been decades of pressure to build large housing developments. Since the pandemic, there's been this sprawl of warehouses that's supporting our online economy. And then very recently in the last year or two, we've seen a lot of data centers being that latest round of development pressure. So because of all of these pressures, New Jersey has been losing farmland. And since 1997, we've lost about 6,000 acres of farmland per year. And part of that's due to the consolidation and farms going under, as Jonathan mentioned earlier. To try to reverse or slow down this trend, the New Jersey Department of Agriculture's State Agriculture Development Committee, they have a farmland preservation program where, as Jeff mentioned, you're giving away the development rights, but you can continue to farm on that land. So far, they've preserved over 250,000 acres of farmland. And some really great news from this week was that Burlington County was successful in preserving a 270 acre farm. So adding that to our grand tally for the state. And this is also true in the Pinelands. So of the 483,000 acres that have been permanently protected in the Pinelands area, 21% of that is farmland. But we need some policy changes to help farmers stay afloat and to reduce this development pressure that they are experiencing. So one of the bills that we are advocating for currently, Senate Bill number 609, this would exclude farmland from redevelopment or rehabilitation areas. We've seen inappropriate use of what is supposed to be a really good function, the redevelopment and rehabilitation. That's usually revitalizing urban areas, but it's pretty universally been used in South Jersey to target farmland and forests, which we see as very problematic. So this bill will at least exclude farmland, and we're pushing for it to also exclude forests. Another bill, Senate Bill number S 4350. This would expand and protect urban agriculture. We have the Right to Farm Act in New Jersey, which provides a lot of protections for farmers. But this typically does not apply in an urban context. So those urban growers that Jonathan was talking about that we want to help support in Camden and elsewhere, they should be able to benefit from the right to farm laws. So this bill would help do that. And agrivoltaics and dual use solar, this has potential to generate additional income for farmers. This combines food and energy production together. So this is still pretty nascent. The New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, they have a pilot program that's getting up and running, and they're opening it up to farmers from around the state. But this is except for the farmers that are in the Pinelands. The Pinelands CMP currently does not allow for this kind of use of solar. It was built to, prevent farms just turning into solar farms, but did not really foresee a situation like this where both things can be done together. So commissioners seem broadly supportive of this, as is PPA, but it will require a whole almost year-long process in order to amend the CMP to make this happen. So takeaways about this development section: New Jersey has been losing farmland, but the State Farm Preservation Program and other policies are working to slow this trend. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to all the rest of our presenters, and I'd like to declare that this is a wrap on our 35th anniversary webinar series that we've been putting on this year. And you can watch the replays from all of the other webinars that we've done this year on our different areas of work at PPA that are all available on YouTube, as this one will be as well within the next week. And with that, we can take questions for any of our presenters.
So we had two questions so far. One was, would love to hear more about how you can support Camden farmers. So I guess that's kind of more of an open-ended thing. Oh, I do see that Jonathan answered though. So I don't know.
Sort of. Yeah. So I interpret it as how we're supporting it. But yeah, primarily we're putting in the infrastructure, roots to prevention, has been around since 2019. Prior to that, I had created Routes to Market, which was the sales channel, just to create health and wealth promoting employment. So we have a lot of things in place that enabled Pinelands Preservation Alliance and Rancocas Creek Farm to kind of hit the ground running in Camden, with buy-in and support from institutions, trust from community development organizations that have land that we can work with to grow more food. So in a very short amount of time, we've been able to connect Rancocas Creek Farm to multiple farm stands. We've been able to work with community development organizations to really put a lot of trust in us to design more gardening spaces and facilities. One noteworthy one is a 2,000 square foot parcel at Northgate that the Camden Lutheran Housing Authority literally just said, you tell the developer what you want and we'll get it built. And so now we're having meetings with the school district and the director of food and nutrition to plan out ways that they can start to purchase our food. Cooper wants us to have CSAs and food at some of the other healthcare facilities beyond the city of Camden. So this convergence of PPA and RTP has really accelerated our impact. Grants that we're paying for my time and some of my team now go directly into the programs. Our next step is to really solidify a pipeline of workers in farming and urban agriculture maintenance, beginning with the hiring of a full-time urban farm manager. And so these are very strategic investments. We have some storage already on Haddon. We have distribution support from Rancocas Creek Farm. We have a overwhelming increase in demand, and our biggest shortfall right now is honestly supply, and that's something we're also seeing across southern New Jersey. And I don't know of a single nonprofit beyond the Alliance that is recognizing that the farmers, these small mid-sized farmers, are also distressed. As much, and in some cases more so, than the populations that cannot access their food. So we're very unique in that this integrative approach that you heard today is not only helping make markets more inclusive and accessible, but it's also helping the producer stay in business and continue to grow that food. Because if we don't have enough of those, then all this work is in vain. And that's not to diminish the importance of so many that are out there day to day trying to feed and keep people healthy and fight this tsunami of chronic illness. All of that's important, but at the end of the day, if food is truly medicine, we really do need to take in consideration helping those farmers and making sure those urban farmers have the resources, the back office support, food safety, soil safety, all those things. And yeah. And yes, we're working hard to get that farm manager in place so that there is a consistency that hasn't been experienced in Camden pretty much ever. Urban farming and food access work is something that has just been in the purview of nonprofits with very, very thin, shoestring budgets here, very unpredictable work, conditions and staff turnovers. And so the Alliance is really bringing a stability there in a space that needs it, so that there'll be that consistency. And consistency and having presence has been really the secret ingredient to the success of rooster prevention to date. It's all of our partners leveraging our resources to be in the community and not leave because this work is hard or we run out of resources. We're constantly working together, pulling everything we can to move the needle.
Thank you, Jonathan. And then Bill had asked, is permaculture part of the plan for the future? And Jeff, that one's for you.
I don't think I think what we do is use elements that can be considered permaculture. I don't think we're like a permaculture, example or certified operation, but I think there's elements. I'm not really that schooled or steeped into traditional permaculture, but using elements of like using as many perennial crops as we can. We've planted 300 fruit trees, rhubarb, blackberries, things that don't require tillage. We try to use the slope. We have a little bit of sloping ground, so that's where our orchard is. We do raise pigs and on pasture, and then we rotate. When they're done, we cover crop, and then subsequent years we'll grow produce using the fertility from the livestock. Like I said, trying to designate the wetter areas for meadows and tree plantings for natives. We've gotten some money from NRCS, the federal government, to do some of that work. So I hope that answers your question. I think actually Rachel is more schooled in the fine arts of permaculture, but I guess we're sort of permaculture-ish.
I would agree-ish. Thank you for your question, Bill. And thank you, Jeff, too. And then Christine said, I saw a partnership with Rowan in one of the early slides. Can someone explain the relationship with them?
Oh, that's a really good one. There's so much to talk about. Yeah, so when Roots of Prevention was formed, it was through a national grant called the Build Health Challenge, and part of the requirement was that the solution needed to be upstream, so systems change, not just addressing people that are getting sick from food, but changing the environment and preventing that from happening through data collection and bold strategies. And so for data collection, we had some interventions. We took Virtua's prescription program and we brought it into the community so you could redeem that prescription at a corner store for fresh foods. We had a couple other interventions with programs and healthy cooking and things of that nature. And Rowan helped get the IRB approval to do 2 of the 3 studies. The third one was done directly by Virtua in-house to kind of see if all of our collaboration was having a positive impact on the health incomes of our neighbors. And over time, Rowan really stepped up. They weren't just doing the data collection. They started to leverage their dietetic students to help our farmers. Some did not have reliable refrigeration or even running water, so they would help bring ice. When Virtue was ready to sell Camden produce on their mobile farm trucks and their mobile grocery bus, it was Rowan students that designed their business cards and the labels that went onto the bags for their food. We had students that would drive around in their Hyundais and other small sedans with coolers to get that food to our aggregators at Freehaven, and eventually that farm stepped down, and then Rancocas Creek stepped up. So we've had Rowan students do a tremendous amount of support to get the momentum going forward to show that this work was possible. So yeah, that's a great question.
Thank you, John. Yeah, and if anyone has anything else, please put it in the chat. Otherwise, thank you all for presenting. It looks like Jeff's typing. I don't know what he's saying.
Yeah, and I've learned from Jeff, we had to oversimplify this conventional and alternative, but there is a spectrum. And in permaculture, principles can apply to almost any scale. You can bring bird species and tree habitats into a big soy farm. There are always some options that can get incorporated into any type of farm from permaculture that we've learned about. It's not an all or nothing scenario, which is another thing I feel like not enough people know about. So yeah, thank you everyone for being on this call today.
Yeah, thank you all. And I think that's it. So have a great rest of your day and weekend soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.